Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Baltzell. Welcome back. We haven't had a Facebook Live since Friday because we had the Easter holiday, and then we had a webinar yesterday, which was really fun and entertaining and also insightful. So if you haven't watched it yet, please come watch the recording of it. You can see it on our Contact Live page. But today is Wednesday, which means we get Dr. Jess Trimble with us. We love telemed.com, and she's going to give us the update of what in the world's happened in the last 7 days of telemedicine, because it changes every minute, every hour, every day. So you kind of have an interesting news tip that I was kind of taking a peek at. Do you want to share it with us, Jess?
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me. This has been really fun. I don't know that I would call my news tip interesting. If anything, I would call it infuriating personally, especially because I practiced in California for the last 5 years before I just moved to Colorado. And California, unfortunately, has not had a very progressive medical board for several years now, and we've all kind of known that. But the disappointing thing to me is that in light of what's happening, and especially in California too, they've been pretty hard hit. All of these other states are making concessions to help their veterinarians and make their lives easier, to temporarily loosen or extend VCPR guidelines. A lot of states have said that while this is going on, you can electronically establish a VCPR, or you can have your VCPR last for 2 years instead of just 1 year, or, they're all trying to help. California has chosen the opposite stance and is actively trying to make veterinarians' lives more difficult, because there were so many veterinarians reaching out to them saying, this is a state of emergency. And they do have a little concession in there that says, if this is an emergency situation, you can provide advice or, recommendations. And so we always thought that that was the normal, but it turns out when all of these vets reached out to say, hey, this is a state of emergency, so does that mean that we can provide more telemed? They decided to go backwards and backtrack entirely and say, not only are we not going to loosen the VCPR, we're going to reestablish that we're going to force a VCPR for every single medical condition. So that means that if you brought your dog to me and your dog had diarrhea, and we fixed your dog's diarrhea and everything's great, but you know what, it's snowing and your dog is cold and arthritic, and so you call me back up and just say, hey, can I get some arthritis meds? You just saw my dog last week. I would have to say no to you, because I didn't establish a VCPR for arthritis. I only established a VCPR for diarrhea. So this idea that veterinarians now have to do an in-person exam for every single medical condition in order to then be able to provide any virtual advice is absolutely crazy to me. So I'm pretty disappointed in the Veterinary Medical Board for this stance. To be totally honest, the medical board's had a lot of issues in the past. They decided to increase licensing fees from $300 to $500 this year too, so they're having some financial difficulties. But the interesting thing here too is that there's a few veterinarians that are really trying to take charge of this and doing some change.org petitions to try to get a lot of veterinarians to sign these petitions to send to the Veterinary Medical Board. They're also encouraging veterinarians to reach out to the VMB with case stories and case studies of where they have seen telemed in California be very, very successful, so that we can show just how much telehealth is not only helping our lives as veterinarians, especially right now, but also our patients' lives when we can't get them in the door. So if you're from California, I'd encourage you to reach out to the VMB and let them know how much this really does negatively affect veterinarians' lives, and to let them know that they're being maybe a little short-sighted right now in this time of crisis.
Definitely good to know.
Saying that though, I'll say that I'm super proud of some of the veterinary medical boards, like South Carolina, for instance. They've done a fantastic job. So there's some out there that they're really doing something.
It's state by state right now, really.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a national, it's a national crisis. It's an international crisis. I mean, the whole world's in the soup. with this, right? But how we're responding to the crisis really varies on a state-by-state level, at least in the United States. And it varies by profession, and it varies by geographical location. And we're all writing the textbook while we're living it. There is no textbook to pull off the shelf and go, oh, okay, well, we've been through one of these things before. We'll go to page 40 and that'll give us the answer, right? I mean, we don't have that right now. And so we're all trying to figure this out hour by hour, week by week. And as we go through the learning curve, some things are going to be really spectacularly awesome, and some are going to be complete #fails. And so we're going to learn as we go, right? And it sounds like California is definitely maybe choosing a little bit more bumpy ride on the learning curve on this choice. Yep. So we'll see what the outcome is with it. Yeah, I mean, it's all choices, right? And we get to live the choice and make the choices sometimes. So speaking of choices, did you have some extra resources today for people that are already in existence? Is that what we were talking about?
I do have extra resources. So that's your tip of the day. One absolutely incredible thing that has come out of all of this is how much our profession has really stepped up to help each other. Like, of all of the times that I'm proud to be a vet, this is one of those times, because individual veterinarians, as well as our sort of more established organizations, have really worked hard to make sure that veterinarians have the resources they need to help them during this time. So there's 4 that I'm a really big fan of. And the first is the veterinary telemedicine community on Facebook. If you're not a part of it right now, I'd really encourage you to join. It's fantastic. It's just a group of people that are all wading through this and helping each other with their own learnings and experiences. And it's discussions of what platforms are working for people and what platforms aren't. There's also regular webinars and sort of Zoom interviews from people who are using telehealth successfully, as well as the platform providers themselves providing demos to groups on a regular basis. And so just a great amount of information in that telemedicine community. And if you have questions specific to your own sort of practice, throw it up there and you'll have telehealth experts in there helping to answer your questions. So that's the veterinary telemedicine community on Facebook. Fantastic. Other ones, the AVMA has really put out a nice page. It's just called What Veterinarians Need to Know, COVID-19. But it goes through not just telehealth recommendations, but it's everything you need to know as a vet right now. It's got actual COVID information, the origination and spread, and that impact on animals. We're seeing a lot of people, or a lot of veterinarians, with getting questions from their clients about whether or not their pet is going to pass it, especially after the tigers showed up positive in New York. And then there's also more practical resources around telemedicine, as well as like drug and medical supply chain impacts, international experiences, and then down into legislation and relief programs. So if you need to apply for a loan, if you need to help manage your cash flow, they have all sorts of amazing resources on there to help you get through this. Other ones, the AHA has this really cool booklet. It's called The Real Life Rewards of Virtual Care. It's a little bit older, but it's still super pertinent, and it is just a very well thought out and well designed high level look at virtual care and how you can apply it to your practice. And then the last one is the AAVSB. They're doing a really nice job of tracking changes on a state-by-state level. And these are changes to VCPR requirements, to licensing requirements, to CE requirements. And so if a state has released any sort of change to their current protocols or practice acts, the AAVSB is keeping track of that all on their website as well. And so a lot of the questions that I get from people can all be answered just through these resources. So don't forget that part of the great thing about this profession is we just have so many groups that really do want to jump in and help veterinarians stay afloat during this time. And we're seeing some great resources come out of it right now.
That's awesome. I think, we were talking a little bit before this, was that you and I were talking about, okay, we had the crisis and everybody was just like, oh my God, what's happening? And states are closing down and we're trying to figure out what does that mean and what should our protocols be? And are the protocols that we decide on working or not working? We're kind of through the mass crush, right? And now we're kind of into the grind of the endurance. And some people, in some ways it's easier because you don't feel like you're going to be blindsided by the next massive change coming out of the blue. But on the other hand, endurance and just going through it is exhausting too, because we're not quite sure where the end of the tunnel is. And that, of course, varies by state and it varies by crisis point and all of that. Right now, that brings its own stress because of the unknown. But during that time, you can create, like you said last week, protocols for the hospital, find resources, like it's a creation time. If you rechannel your energy into productivity versus raiding the pantry, and
you can do both.
15, right? Something that nobody wants to gain. You can come up with some pretty cool stuff. So these resources are really helpful with that. And then also incorporating maybe into your own practice. It's just like, what do you want to take out of this? What do you want to live towards the future, right?
Yep, and I think the biggest message or feeling I keep getting is that, we can't treat any of what we're doing like a Band-Aid. We have to look at this like, the protocols you're making are for long term, because, you joke and you say that there's not a book written for this. Next year, there probably will be, how to run a veterinary practice in a pandemic, because it's going to happen again.
Right? And somebody is probably writing it as we speak, right? Like that's how they're using their creative energy is like, I am going to write a book. Well, somebody has to. Yeah. So there's probably multiple somebodies, but it's true. But right now we're living it. We're living it. We're creating it. We're trying it. We're going, this idea worked. Yeah, no, this idea didn't work so much, right? And we're figuring out our own endurance levels and what we personally can manage and not manage and where we're stepping up to the plate. And it's hard. And I guess, that would be the marketing to self message today is realizing that the endurance phase is equally as hard, but in a different way than the crisis part of the day, right? Like, how do you motivate yourself, when you don't want to be motivated? Because, you may be bored or you may be over this or you don't want to do anything else and you've cleaned every single closet and you've done everything that you possibly can do. What do you do next? You got to figure out how to take care of yourself during this time and to stay healthy and active. And so exercise, I think, is still equally as important.
Absolutely.
Get out, get off your butt, get moving. Stop raiding the pantry. I know I've said that, but it's true because you go for the sweets when you're in a bad moment.
That's true. It's why I make a point not to have them in the house, because otherwise,
right? It's hand to mouth, and it's a very short distance from hand to mouth, short distance from here to pantry. Yeah, so get out, get exercise, even in a snowstorm, because you have 9 inches coming today.
Yes.
We have 9 inches.
Up to quite a snowstorm tomorrow. So,
make some snowballs.
I'll make snowmen all 6 feet apart from each other. It'll be great.
Funny. Yeah, it'll be great. Well, that's kind of the marketing to self today is, you got to figure out how to keep yourself going. We're into the endurance. That doesn't mean you plop on the couch and Netflix it out forever. You just got to figure out how to keep taking care of you during this time. So become your own cheerleader. Get yourself moving, get your family moving, get your team moving, lead yourself to success. So that's it. Well, until next week, we'll see you again and we'll get the latest updates.
Next week will be nothing but good news, I'm sure of it.
I'm sure it'll be nothing but good news.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you in a week.